Hey guys, so I just want to make this video quickly. I want to ask you one very, very important question. And here's the question. Why do you want to become financially independent? Really, generally, why do you as an individual want to become financially independent? Do you think becoming financially independent will make you more freer than somebody who isn't financially independent? Most people probably say yes. Most people would be like, oh, then I'd have access to do more things, which is true. You would have an ability to go traveling, quit your job, take time off, see your family, stuff like that, which is true. You would. But in the general sense, are you more independent than somebody who isn't financially free? Meaning, yes, you may have your own job and you may be able to buy your own food and you may be able to buy your own car and not have to worry about other people's money to get that. But in a general sense, outside of the economic game that we play, in a survival standpoint, are you any more independent than somebody who does not have $1 million? If a day ever came around, not saying it will, I'm not trying to scare you and be like, okay, tomorrow the world's going to end, but if ever came around where your money became worthless, would you be able to survive? Because this is where my opinion of independence differs from a lot of other people. When people think of independent, they're like, oh, I have my own car, I have my own house, I have my own money, I'm independent, which is great. You're better than the mass majority, than people who already rely on other people to support them. But the problem is my version of independence is not just economically speaking, but also at a survival standpoint. My version of independence is not relying on economic systems and other things to provide me my resources. My version of it is to go out and be able to get my own resources, be able to hunt, fish, grow food, build my own shelters, start a fire without, a lighter or some kind of tool, be able to, cook without using a microwave, basic survival skills. And that's what I clarify as being independent, is being able to become so good at those skills that I don't need to rely on a socially accepted economic system as financial independence, as we call it, as my freedom. I'd rather be independent in a sense to where I can get my own resources and I don't got to rely on going to the grocery store to get my food, or going to the tap to get my water, or going, to rely on my furnace to work for my heat. Because one day what's going to happen is if you don't have these skills, these basic survival skills, and the tides change, and let's say, for instance, the economic system that we live in stops working, would you be ready? Would you be able to survive in a world and be able to hunt, fish, and get your own resources without money? And if I asked 9 out of 10 people, the answer would be no. They'd be like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to fish. I don't hunt. I don't know how to build a shelter. How do you start a fire? How do you cook without using a microwave? Majority of people would be screwed in a heartbeat. They would starve in a month because they wouldn't know how to survive. And that's where humans should be going towards, is not dependency on an economic system to become quote unquote independent. The goal should be to escape the economic system and be so independent and self-sustaining that they can go out and go get their own resources. That you rely on the economic system as the last alternative in life. You go out and you go gather your resources. You go out and you go find your water. You go start your fire. You build your house. You survive on your own. You become independent from the economic system. So back to my original question. Why do you want to be financially free? Do you really think somebody who has $1 million or $1 billion or a big fancy house or drives a fantastic car and has lots of beautiful women around them is any more freer than somebody who doesn't? They're not. Because here's the problem. In the survival world, outside of the economic game, you don't own anything. Like, I don't own these lights or this backdrop or even this phone that I'm recording on. I own nothing. I say I own it. I guess in a legal term, in a contract, yes, and financially speaking, yes, I own it. But in a dog-eat-dog world, in a survival of the fittest world, you don't own shit. You own absolutely nothing, and here's why. You only own something until somebody else wants to take it or wants it more than you. And basically, if you're not willing to fight for that thing that you want to own, quote unquote, they're going to take it from you. And if times ever get to a condition where your money is worthless and people are starving and they're hungry and they're desperate, you may come into that confrontation where you're going to run into somebody who's going to want to take something from you. May it be food or gold or some kind of tangible resource that could be used to buy something else or be traded for something else. So, again, someone who's a millionaire is not technically freer than somebody who's not in a survival sense. And if it ever comes to a point that where you need to survive, could you? You know, I would rather be somebody who is independent and sense that I don't need to rely on these economic systems like a grocery store to be my food or the tap to give me my water. I'd rather be the person who goes out and goes to find those resources myself and relies as little as possible on the economic system at play. Because like right now, in history, in this time frame that's been going on in the 21st century, we are on the second or third generation of people who have become dependent on these systems to exist, to get their resources, to get their food, their water, you know, their shelter. We've become so dependent on money that if it ever came a day that this system that we live in, this economic system, disappeared, 90% of people would be screwed. They would starve in a month. They wouldn't know how to adapt and survive. And because they've become so dependent on these systems to make it in this world. And it would be a very sad day to happen in humanity when it gets to that point, which, you know, it might. I'm not saying it will, but it could. Very shortly, too, we might add. But, you know, if it ever does, would you be ready? Because the problem is with money, it's only valuable if two people agree that it has value. Once one person decides money is worthless, money's worthless. And it doesn't mean anything. You know, you might be able to use money as a form of tinder to light a fire, or if you have enough of it, say if you're a billionaire, you could build a house out of it to build your shelter, but outside of that, money is worthless. It really is. It doesn't mean anything. Really, the most important thing is the ability to survive. If you don't have the tangible skills to survive, and if you're ever put in that situation where you need to survive, could you? Would you? Most importantly, should you? And in my opinion, yeah, you should. Because, you know, in the real world, not this little make-believe society that we live in that we all agree upon for rules, if it was ever to go away, could you make it? I just wanted to put that thought out there. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching my video. Peace.